Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy Sunday, everyone. How are you? I'm sorry, my phone.
Hello, and as always, thank you for joining us on Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danya Williams. I hope you guys are great today.
And perhaps just a little bit cooler than what we are today, because it feels like swimming in a lukewarm pool.
Yeah, yeah, it's muggy. It's really muggy outside.
Yeah, I've got to get used to this southern weather. That's all I have
Yes,
to
he
say.
does. Yes, he does. Just remember, he's from Boston.
and England, so
Yes.
yeah. So as always, thank you for joining us. And today, really, it's just going to be kind of a relaxed show. We're going to be doing a recap of the season.
Yes. It's sad, but it's not sad because Brian and I are tired.
A little bit.
No. No, we're tired.
We're tired.
We're tired.
But it's a good time.
But it's a good tired because this was probably one of our best seasons.
Yes. And it was a learning curve for us because this is kind of like 2 seasons in one, really. We've never done this many episodes.
Right. I think you're right. I think the most we did before was probably, well, no, we did this many last year because we started here last year. So season 3, we did about this many, and season 4,
A little bit longer.
it's a little, it might be about two or three episodes longer, but it still was tiring. Guys, we did 40 episodes, not including the side stuff that we did.
True.
So,
And I guess for the benefit of the audience, because they may not kind of realize the way that we work, that's a lot of, for each show we do a lot of research, we do a lot of reading, a lot of checking people out on YouTube.
Yeah.
All of that kind of,
Yeah.
all that kind of background work.
yeah, we have to
work-
find everything and make sure that the people can go through. That's why I'm really so determined that before July 31st, we have at least the first part done before we break around that Christmas time, because I'm tired. I got a headache and everything is just, I'm tired.
But we love what we do.
Yes.
Yes. So, I was going to say, in this, even though we do a really good job of covering a lot of different subjects and areas about genealogy and Black history,
Right.
we really hit it this year.
We did. We did. These were some awesome shows, and we just want to talk about them with you guys. We, share what we have and what you think was good, because
Yeah, because, again, getting your feedback is invaluable. We love getting it.
that's right. We need it. We
love
gotta have it. We gotta have it. So,
So I want to open up with one of my, and again, we love all of the shows that we do. We love all of our guests, but there have been moments in this year that have been real standouts for us, both personally and professionally. I wanted to open up the show with Katrina Kiefer and talking about the fact that there's still slavery-related records in Africa.
how about that?
But then she went even deeper, talking about body marking,
Right.
which is her specialism in
Right.
terms of her area of study, academic study. And we never thought about it. And if we actually had the video clip of my face and your face, but
Just-
my face was like, you could see the epiphany happening
Yeah.
in my head.
Yeah.
Going, we can actually research. If our ancestors ever ran away, I hate that term. I'm going to say walked off the farm or plantation or where they were enslaved in the
Right.
advert, talking about scars and markings. That can give us a clue.
That can
about
give us
where
a
they
clue
came
about
from.
where they came from. And it was just amazing to learn that. And I think in the video clip myself, I even stood there and said, okay, well, now I feel stupid. And she was like, well, don't feel stupid. But that show was so awesome. So,
Yep. And it teaches us a lesson that sometimes the most invaluable clues that we will ever have, literally right there under our nose.
right.
You just need, but I think sometimes for genealogists, I don't care what stripe or ethnicity you are, we're just so ingrained in the research and we're just so concentrating on what's in front of us that even I have to be mindful to maybe, I should take more of a practice taking a couple of steps backwards.
Right. And
Even walking away from it for a couple of minutes and just let
and
things
just let
percolate.
it just percolate in your head. And the thing is, this is, to me, she pointed out that what I've always said, genealogy is a common sense thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it really is kind of like common sense that if you had to search for people at the end of their road, you're going to have to search for them at the beginning of their road too. So documents are going to be there. Document is, they're going to have this person walking up the plank, and they're going to have that information on them. And yeah.
So kind of for this show and the next one that we'll be talking about, what you said, that's perfect, because we're still stuck in the 1700s in Edgefield for some of our lines, and even the early 1800s for others of them.
All of mine.
And not really thinking, what am I going to get? What am I going to do? Or how am I going to research the even earlier part of this story when you start getting ancestors who were brought over from Africa?
Exactly.
How, what's the game plan? What's the strategy to figuring out what ship they came on, when they arrived, what port they actually left on.
We got one person that said this is her first season and she felt like she earned her second BA in history minus the student loans. Al, I'm so glad to hear that part.
High five to you. But for me, that was, we've had powerful shows.
We have.
We're going to be talking about quite a few of them today, but that just blew my mind.
Yeah, that was a deep show. That was a deep show. So are we going in the order?
Not necessarily. I just wanted to have this up there because these were the main shows that you and I really wanted to talk about.
Okay.
I figured since we started with Katrina, Afiba, if you can bring up the slave voyages image. It's just a natural segue to this one. The slave voyage show that we did, it's about this slave. It's called slavevoyages.org. It is an amazing website, especially when you are getting to that point where you are literally dealing with Africans who are shipped over to not just this country, the whole Atlantic world. Basically, it documented every single known slave ship that left Africa and went from Brazil, went to Brazil, the Caribbean, Uruguay, all of South America,
right.
Caribbean, the Americas, the lot. There is, with Nafis Khan. He just dropped so much knowledge.
He did. Now this was your show. And I was just learning because my stubborn ancestors don't want me to leave South Carolina. They prefer me to stay right there. So my portion of our stubborn ancestors, let me rephrase that, don't want me to leave. Right. So I haven't gotten that far, but I was able to learn a lot.
So does that mean with me they're kind of like boy bye? We want her, but you can just
not boy bye. They're not boy bye. They're pushing me. They're pushing me. They do other stuff with me. You know that, Brian.
I'm teasing.
I know. They just do things to me that's just not fair, and I don't like it.
They tease you.
Yes.
They don't tease you. They bait you.
Yes, they bait me.
They dangle that little carrot in front of Danya, and then they yank it away. You bite, and they yank it away.
Right, and then so now I don't bite anymore.
Yeah.
And that angers them. But ask me, do I care?
And I guess the reason why Slave Voyages was really powerful to me is the research that I'm currently engaged in is researching Africans who were brought over into Charleston and down into Berkeley County, South Carolina. And that's where I actually immediately understood the power of this website, the level of information that you can get. It's all in that episode.
It is. It is.
He was a wonderful guest, and as I say, he just kept dropping.
Just dropping that knowledge. We came with some knowledgeable people this year.
Yeah,
we did, and I'm really excited about that.
So I know that there is one show. I mean, you want to talk about all of them,
but you already know.
I know which one you're going for.
I'm going for the Black Cowboy.
Oh, you surprised me.
Who'd you think?
I thought you were going to go for that.
I won't. I mean, I would. Okay, don't do the Black Cowboy.
No, do the Black Cowboy.
No, don't.
I love that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. But we're not going to talk about the Black Cowboy right now because we do need to talk about him because of the stuff that's going on right now.
Okay.
So
Blaine Bellinger, please.
Yeah, Blaine Bettinger.
Bettinger. Yeah.
That's the one we're going to do because Mr. Bettinger, we have gotten into it again. And as much as I am very open and I love having conversations with him, once again, we do not agree. So Blaine Bettinger's show was about the DNA. And we really talked to him a lot about ancestry when the 6 CMs and the 8 CMs, 6 to 8 CMs were taken away. And we were hoping that he would be able to help all of us, especially African Americans, understand why they removed those particular.
Can I just jump in? I just
Yes.
want to give a little bit of background context. So again, a lot of you who've been watching us regularly know that Ancestry used to be, you had more DNA matches showing as matches. They decided to get rid of all of your matches under
8.
8 CMs. Although Ancestry did give you the option to save them.
Yes, they did.
I'll caveat by saying that.
Yes, they did.
But however, if you weren't quick off the mark or the whatever, they took them away. Obviously, there was a lot of anger amongst African American and other people of color because we need every single DNA match
Yes, we
that
do.
we can get, and it should be for us to determine whether they are false positive.
Yes, it should
But
be.
we need every single DNA match, especially going back into that early colonial period. Those are going to be short segments.
Right.
There's just no two ways of getting around it.
All right.
I don't personally like working with short matches. I really, really don't. But if that's all I got to work with,
That's
and
what we
that's
have
all
to deal
the
with.
geneticists back in London have to work with. That's what we have to work with.
Especially for African Americans. I mean, we already know that our records are lost, not in existence, just
and
hidden.
And it's not even just about identifying our white ancestors. It's
It's
also those early lines in colonial period that were broken apart, and one child went here and another child went there.
And that's what that's the part that I just don't understand why they don't get it. So now that Brian is giving y'all that
We can
background,
talk about the second company that just
right,
did
and
it.
that's what I'm gonna do. Talk about the second company, and the second company is Family Tree DNA. They just did the exact same thing and removed the centimorgans, and it's about the same amount, 6 to 8 cms, and Blaine agreed with that.
After having been on the show.
After having been on the show, after stating in front of all of you that he understands where we're coming from, he then turned around and agreed with that. So,
And I want to ask you an honest question, and if anyone in the audience has an answer to this, please chime in. I don't remember any serious African American genealogists, whether professional or just doing this for a long period of time, that actually supported that change.
there is not a one.
So there isn't one.
There is
I
not
didn't-
a
'cause I
one.
didn't want to say that
No,
without- okay.
there. Not that I've spoken to. I have not come across, and we have a lot of genealogical friends that deal in the DNA and go through, and they do not agree with this. This is not to say that they don't agree with other things that Blaine does, because I can say the same thing. There are things that I agree with that Blaine does, but this particular situation, I do not agree with it. So again, he made his comment, and I responded, and this time, I asked him to join along. I want you guys to know there has been no response. So until that happens, I need him to stop talking. And I'm going to stop there.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is one of the reasons why I'm really proud of this show is, most of our shows have been with people who have either researched subjects that we are researching. They're familiar with an area of history that we want to bring out more to get better context about what our ancestors, the world that our ancestors
Exactly.
would have known.
Exactly.
This, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was the first time that we'd actually had a guest that we'd had a public disagreement with.
Yes.
And it was public,
And
but
it was
respectful.
it was very respectful, and and we had to. You guys don't know what I had to do to get that man on the show, because he was not going to come on the show at first. I'm going to keep that honest. He wasn't going to come on the show, but I told him, this is the perfect time to show people how to have an argument without being nasty towards each other.
And can I just say, I wish that the press and media could
have watched that show,
because
yes.
we profoundly disagreed with Blaine
Completely
on this
and totally.
on this subject.
Yes.
We profoundly disagreed with him.
Yes.
You watched that show. We were welcoming.
Yes.
We were absolutely respectful.
Yes. And he enjoyed himself.
And he enjoyed himself. We had a great conversation.
We had a great conversation. You can be adults and agree to disagree, and you can point out your stuff, even if you don't believe in what they're saying, you can agree to disagree. So, but let me say, Family Tree DNA they went a step worse than Ancestry. They didn't tell anybody. Now I have, for those that do the DNA, Family Tree DNA, you can upload to them, but you also have paid people. Well, I was both. I have 2 paid, and I have, I think, 3 uploads. Neither side was told. So we didn't even know about the CMs being removed or anything like that.
We had zero opportunity to save them. Because
Yep.
I would have saved them like
we did in Ancestry. And in Ancestry's defense, they allowed us to save. So I appreciate that, because those that were taken away, supposedly taken away, I got the opportunity to get them saved. Thank you to my cousin Charles, because he sure worked that out for me. But, you know, Family Tree DNA didn't give you the opportunity to do that. So, I have my issues.
My additional issue to what you said is that Family Tree DNA could not have known. They had to have known the backlash that Ancestry had.
That's why they didn't tell anybody.
So they already knew.
They knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
They knew exactly what they were doing. And that's why they didn't tell anybody. And I'm going to say that. And yeah, I'm going to say that. So
you guys can, by all means, just say, as we're kind of talking about these topics and subjects, I mean, if you want to chime in, please do. Donnie will read out your comments and your questions.
AE said that Family Tree DNA was the first autosomal test that they took. Well, you need to go and look at it, because people are missing.
Yeah, mine is actually drastic.
Yeah, it's a drastic change.
I lost thousands.
It is. It's a drastic change on Family Tree DNA.
Kicker is the biggest immediate issue for me is around my Jewish great-grandfather, because not even my Jewish cousins knew what the original family name was. They've lost their Jewish matches. I've lost my Jewish matches. And again, children of the Holocaust, all of those records are burnt. All we have like African American enslaved people. All we have is the DNA to try to stitch it together, and
they took it. They took it. So can I tell them that I did contact Family Tree DNA?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so I contacted Family Tree DNA, y'all. I did, and I said what I said. You know me. If you know me, or you know how I am on this show, you know I said what I said. And
but you were hot, but you were respectful.
But I was I'm respectful.
I just didn't want anyone to doubt that. You were hot, but you were respectful in how you said it.
So I said what I said. But yes, I was very respectful in saying it. And they actually took it I said it on their page. And when I said it on their page, someone else said something that was totally different. And they decided to respond to that person as opposed to responding to me. Me being the fabulous person that I am, I responded back with a simple, "Oh, you respond to them and not me." Okay. That was all that I said. About a week later, I get a inbox message telling me, "Oh, I'm sorry, no one responded to you. If you can contact our customer service. You can send your email or contact our customer service, and they will be able to explain the whole thing to you about everything, including why they dropped the centimorgans and things of that nature." Me being who I am, I responded and I told them, "No, thank you, because you're only going to give me the same answer that Ancestry did. But you went a step further and you didn't tell anybody about it. As a paid member, I had the right to know that." And I did let them know all of those different things. What was their response? Okay. In so many words, it was a very blanket, "That's fine. If you have any more questions, give us a call." Don't have a question. And I'm not going to go on my Family Tree DNA anymore. I'm not going to upload my 3. I'm not, the 3 that was there. I'm done with them. They were the least amount too. Anyway, even though I had a lot with them, they were still the least amount of DNA that I had gotten, because my mom and I are on all of the platforms. So, I I'm not worried about them, but they definitely lost my business.
But what I would like to say to any other major commercial DNA testing company,
call their names. 23andMe and MyHeritage. I'll call it.
Okay.
Do not do this.
My word of advice would be that if you have a segment of your users who are complaining about small matches, thinking that they're all false,
Right.
don't delete them. Create a slider. I know that coding a slider is a nightmare, but let the customer decide what minimal
Right.
threshold we want to see.
Exactly.
Because you're crowdsourcing our DNA as it is.
Exactly.
I mean, let's be honest. That's
because that's what it is. It's crowdsourcing.
They're crowdsourcing our DNA. We're paying for the privilege.
Yeah.
So give us the power to determine what the minimum threshold of CMs and SNPs and all the rest of it is. And I think anyone would understand how to use a slider. You have the least amount of CMs or segments, the greatest amount. You slide it around. You just slide it around till you get it. Job done.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how this whole thing. They have to stop doing this.
The thing that really angers me, though, is they still blatantly market themselves to African Americans. If you go to Family Tree's Twitter page, there's an young African American male, and they're advertising the DNA kits. There's African Americanness in all of their advertising, and you've just taken away one. And you just took away the essential tools
for us. And see, okay, I'm gonna say this, and I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to say this, Brian. I'm tired of us allowing people to do things to us.
Oh, you can say that.
And that's why I am at the point where I'm not uploading my stuff. We know a lot of people that got on Family Tree DNA, and they got on Family Tree DNA because they uploaded. And it was like this whole, remember? It was this whole thing, if you bring in 5 people, then you can upload yours. And they had all this going on. And that's how Family Tree got all of those people into their thing like that. And then you were able to do other stuff. And y'all stop. I'm stopping. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm stopping. I very rarely use Ancestry now. And I'm just being honest with you. Even though I know that for Ancestry, as far as the records are concerned, I need it. Because that's what I'm doing. That's my research. That's where it all boils to. Can't really go out and pick up the stuff like I need to. So I do definitely still use Ancestry for their records. But the DNA, even though I'm hip on the labeling that they have, I cannot pull myself to stay on the DNA part of Ancestry. I can't do it. So, I mean, some kind of boycott has to happen somewhere. Some kind of stoppage. They need to know our power. And when I say our power, I'm not just talking about black people. I'm talking about genealogists as a whole. Because y'all know, I don't care if you're black or white, you have your white genealogists that actually know and understand, your Hispanic genealogists. They all know and they all understand what this does for African American research and people of color research.
And just to prove that, we are aware of other kind of issues around genealogy that aren't related to just our African American ancestors. I have to research poor white,
exactly,
relatives who were early settlers of North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio,
where there are poor records.
Well, there were no records because they were the first. It was wilderness and Native American. That was the only things that were there. So there was nowhere to record deeds. Most of them were illiterate. They didn't have family Bibles.
Right.
All we have is the DNA to all of a sudden try to work out, oh, well, how is this Thompson family in Greene County, which is now West Virginia, related to this earlier?
And if you're not a person that does that kind of research to know that Greene County is now West Virginia, then you're short.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
So just evidencing that the issue is cross-cultural.
Yes.
And there are a lot of, and I guess until I guess European descended people get to that point in their ancestry, they're not even going to realize that that affects them too.
I mean, the sad part is it's like the George Floyd thing. They acted as if they didn't know that this was going on with us, and we've been telling you forever.
Yeah.
We've been telling you what's going on forever, and now because you finally seen it on TV with your own eyes, blatantly in your face.
Only because there was a pandemic that kept us basically prisoners in our own home.
How about that? And that's how you saw that. And now you're like, oh, black violence, this has got to stop. Officer on black on officer, all of that.
I think because the first time white people, well, actually non-black people, because the ignorance wasn't just with one people.
Right.
It was a whole series. Because remember, it really started with Ahmaud Arbery. I'm just thinking in terms of when the lockdown happened, when everyone was home.
Technically, it started with George because we didn't know about Ahmaud.
And was Breonna? No, he was after Breonna.
Nope.
No,
George was in May.
That's right.
George was in May. Aubrey happened a year beforehand. And after the whole situation that George came up, then they were like, oh, here's another situation. And Ahmaud Arbery dies.
But we had 3 in a row.
But you had 3 in a row, back to back to back, that these things were going on. So now you're looking at it like, oh my God, this is terrible. Man, this been happening all the time. You so focused on black crime, which doesn't make any sense. And I don't care who don't like me saying that. It doesn't make any sense because if you live in a black neighborhood, then that's where your crime is going to be. If you live in a white neighborhood, you're going to have white on white crime. So I don't care who has an issue with me on that one. But nevertheless, you focus on black crime so much. Now all of a sudden, now you're seeing the officers and what it is they're doing and why they're doing it, and when they know they are wrong. Did you see that video of the white man who stood up to the officers? When I tell you, this man, it was on the Young Turks, and he said he was cussing them out because those officers were blatantly harassing the people in Florida, in the area that they were. And he was like, get in the car. Get in the car. Just cursing them out, just going off and literally using his privilege to say those things because they did not touch that man. They did not say anything to that man. They didn't stop that man from cursing at them. They didn't do any of that. He knew what they were doing was wrong and he stood up and he made them leave. But the fact that he can make them leave, it's just, we're getting all.
But bringing it back to what prompted that, there is a segment of perhaps genealogists out there.
Right.
And I'm not saying professional ones, just, genealogists who don't appreciate an issue until they can actually see it for themselves. I'm saying if you have colonial era ancestry and you have junior lines that didn't inherit all the money and wealth and slaves and all the rest from Papa, or they were just always poor, just always working class.
Right.
You're gonna come up against this DNA change sooner
or later. It's gonna affect you. Now, one person asked, "Is Family Tree the only one doing Y DNA testing?" And no, you can go. There's a lot of places that you can go to do the Y DNA testing. The goal, though, I mean, you could just go a lot of places to get Y DNA testing done.
That's not where I had mine done.
Yeah. I mean, there are outside laboratories that do that kind of stuff.
The route that I took.
Which is the route that you took. So 23andMe does them. GenMatch even helps to offer some kind of way for Y DNA testing. So, and then you have those outside companies. Now, AE said African Ancestry does it, but
I wouldn't recommend them.
I wouldn't recommend them.
Sorry, I mean, I hate to say that, sorry to say that, but I wouldn't recommend them.
Nope.
Actually, there is an article that was written by a genetic genealogist, and there is a way that if you test on 23andMe, 23andMe and not Ancestry, who's the other one? You can take your autosomal test kit if you're a man. And there's a way that you can upload it to the site and it will tell you.
Is that Genome Link?
Something like, I think that's it.
I think it's called Genome Link.
Yeah. but you upload it and it will tell you what your Y DNA is. And conversely, if you're a woman, you can still download your autosomal DNA test. It will tell you what your mitochondrial
Right.
DNA haplogroup
Right.
is.
Right.
So you don't necessarily have to take a test. I'm going to say in terms of matching, it can be a bit crazy.
Right.
You have to do a lot of reading to understand it. So the show that I wasn't expecting you to shout out, but
We're gonna shout it out.
really excited to shout out about it, was the Black Cowboy
Yes,
Show.
sir. Yes, sir. The Black Cowboy
was
Show.
a show.
Yes. Yes. To learn the stories of the stories that man shared were unbelievable. First of all, Tonto is idiot. Never forget that. Never ever forget that. Tonto means idiot. That was an amazing story.
And the story behind that was some Hollywood producer got
Right.
in touch with the Native American. I can't remember the name of the tribal people.
Yeah, he didn't say what tribal people it was, if I'm not mistaken, but they wanted to.
Well, he basically said, "Well, what would you call a Native American that's kind of a sidekick of this white man?" And they
said Tonto.
He's like, "Well, what does that mean, idiot?"
Well, they didn't ask him.
Oh, that's
They
right.
never asked him what they meant.
That's true.
They just said Tonto. Okay, we'll call him Tonto, and he was like, and it actually means idiot. What? Yes, see, everybody's laughing, and that's what it means. And that show, I think that entire show, not only was Brian and I sitting here with our mouths wide open, but you guys were constantly putting, what? Are you kidding me? What?
Shocked emojis.
Just shocked emojis.
Just
everything. It was amazing, the show. And then...
But again, and I'll get off the Tonto thing in a minute, it actually... Because that relationship between the Lone Ranger and Tonto never made sense to me. Not even a kid. Why is he hanging out with this dude?
No.
He gets treated like trash?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Even as a kid, it didn't make sense. Him explaining that Bass Reeves, the real life person that the Lone Ranger is based on, was kind of, well, he was with them. He was with Native Americans for a goodly portion of his life.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that was said, I'm like, now it makes sense.
Now it makes sense.
This huge missing puzzle piece from a Hollywoodized Disneyfication of that history finally made sense to me.
But on top of that, learning about Tonto was just a jaw-dropping thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing in that show was more jaw-dropping than learning where the word cowboy came from. That was...
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at this man like, you gotta be kidding me, to learn that. So, talk about a cultural appropriation. So, for those that don't remember, the story of how the name cowboy came to pass. Now, if you all, because you all do research, or most of you do research, according to Mr. Callie's, back then when you had your enslaver, he would call his kitchen hand, kitchen boy, that's my kitchen boy, or that's my, something to that nature. That's my yard boy, and that's my this, or that's my that. Well, when it came to the cow hands, the black ones, that's where the name cowboy came from, because he was calling them something else at first.
Field ends, and
Field
they were
ends.
like, oh no, we ain't responding to that. Then he called them something else.
He called them something else, and they didn't respond to that.
They're like,
called them cowboys. And they became cowboys, and that's where the term cowboy came from. And then all of a sudden, moving into the Tonto story, Hollywood learned of the cowboys, and so now they wanted to make it this whole big thing. Understand that white men did not want to be called cowboys. They were the ones that were the cow hands. It was like, boy, who you calling a boy? I'm not a cowboy. But now everybody want to be
cowboy.
Everybody want to be a cowboy now. So when he told that story, I was like, "Ooh, you really took that from us." So that really actually came from black people. Talk about amazed.
And deeply steeped in slavery.
And deeply. Like, you can't imagine the shock that I got from that, guys. I think my mouth was open on that show.
Yeah. And then to add insult to injury and salt to the wound, so African Americans were the first cowboys. Then in Jim Crow America, excluded from rodeos, cowboy
yeah, then you had to have a black one rodeo.
You had a whole separate circuit.
But then that's normal for...
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's normal.
Another show that I absolutely loved was the California Gold Rush.
She was dropping.
Because as much as Mr. Callie's was dropping, there was some serious...
We learned some serious stuff about them going into the California Gold Rush.
From Susan Anderson on that one. And again, finding out a little bit about slavery in California.
Right.
And finding out where the black people of the California Gold Rush were coming from, and then learning about the early history of the cities that were founded and that whole history.
We started a whole thing when we talked about the family tree. They talking about DNA up here, left and right.
I'm sure they are.
And they want to know why we don't recommend African ancestry.
Do you want to go first?
I don't recommend it because it's impossible for you to pinpoint the exact tribe that you come from. What do I mean by that? You have your 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great. You see the numbers that I'm doing, guys? They're doubling each time. 32, 64, 128. These people came from different places. So why are you going to think that common sense... You cannot pinpoint that they all came from the same place, and that is the same tribe. The only thing that they are doing is choosing your largest amount of CMs that come from that one specific area and saying, this is the tribe that you come from. That's being done on all of the DNA sites. And that's why I think it's taking your money. As much as I want to support African American businesses in every single way, I don't support whether it's African American businesses or white businesses or what have you, that's going to purposely steal your money, take your money, or however.
I just feel as one of the more expensive tests, because compared to its major competitors, it is. My concerns are around the transparency behind the data. I want to know what tribes have been, what ethnic people in Africa have been tested.
Right.
I want to know what qualified them. Because again, usually what happens, they're called data sets.
Right.
And DNA companies will buy data sets, and they will also create their own.
Right.
And they create them by actually real DNA test results. And the non-commercial, the scientific one that I took, it gave you it told you exactly how people were selected. So for instance, if they were testing Nigerians from a specific ethnic group, they wanted to know that there was intermarriage in the family within just that ethnic group going back 3 or 4 generations. Because you have to you have to factor in admixtures.
Right.
You think African countries, they have more than one ethnic group living in them. Nigeria's got many. I can't even remember how many Nigeria has, but it's close. If it's not 100, it's kind of very close to that number.
Right.
African people were moving around all the time. You have colonial disruption, all of that stuff.
I mean, people were moving. Forget African people, just people in general. We're moving around all the time. It's common sense. You have all of these grandparents that you come from. Everybody didn't come from the same tribe. Remember, these were battling tribes too. Mm-hmm. So they were fighting each other. So they weren't even from the same... They weren't even from the same tribe, and they were fighting each other. And then all of a sudden, she fell in love with him, and they had you. And, and that's what happened. No matter what, this is not the first time that kind of that happened. We're not in the century of the beginning of the beginnings of that. That has been going on forever. This is why we say the things that we say about white and black relationships in because it happened. You can't sit here and say that it just started happening. Oh goodness. Okay. that time.
Up, we're back.
Oh, okay.
We are back. Hopefully that didn't split the video in half.
I hope not.
But yeah, that's some of our issues around
He said it's
that.
good. He got it. So,
I mean, there are more. It's worth Googling.
it's definitely
'Cause,
worth Googling.
Again, there are a lot of very high-profile genealogists that have said what we've said, and then they've said a whole lot more.
Right.
I don't really want to spend any more time kind of talking about that. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about the California Gold Rush?
No.
Okay. Edward Ball. I love that show because we came out of that with far more than I thought we were ever going to get.
He was very open.
That's not saying anything about Mr. Ball. It's just we had spent a lot of time watching a lot of his YouTube videos where he's being interviewed and he's talking about his book, Slaves in the Family. And I think for him, I think after when you keep saying the same thing over and over again, and you keep getting asked the same questions, you just you just give the response.
Right.
We asked questions I don't think he'd ever been asked before.
Right.
So we got a lot more. He was such a delightful man to speak to. It couldn't have been easy.
He was very open.
Very open. He was very honest.
Very. And even some of our members were somewhat, well, not our members, but people who knew about the show, they were somewhat mean. And they didn't even know what he was going to say. And I'd love to know how they feel after seeing.
That's a good question.
After seeing the show, because you had one person say, well, I hope he donates that money to this, to the enslaved people, the people that his family enslaved, when in actuality, they formed a whole organization to try to get certain things done, and then nobody stepped up and do that. So you can't be. I'm gonna stop because y'all will get mad at me. Go ahead.
But there were some jaw-dropping moments in that show too when he was talking about that bizarre form of punishment.
Oh.
I can't remember someone got accused of not washing something properly, and she got a little bit angry and threw it on the floor.
Yes.
And then the slave mistress, her enslaver, sent her to slave jail.
Yes.
In Charleston, where she literally had to tread like a grist wheel.
So the wheel, that big wheel that you see in like the Bob Ross paintings, where it had the big steps. It was a mill wheel.
Yeah, that was it.
That's what it was, a mill wheel. She was the person making the wheel move. That's basically what the punishment was.
For hours at a time.
Yeah, she was making that wheel move. She had to step and do the stepping on there so that this wheel could generate this energy of water that was going. It was powered by her.
And it was actually one of our audience members who were like, oh yeah, I've heard about that. They brought that over from Barbados. And we know that there's that link between Charleston and Barbados. But yeah, that I was like, wait, what?
Why am I falling?
I'm like, what did you just say? The other one was the crazy story about, it wasn't a direct ancestor of his, but it was one of his female family members.
Yes, she was something else, that girl.
Yes, Miss Auntie.
Yes, Miss Auntie.
The story about every morning the enslaved people had to be lined up and paraded under the veranda that she's sitting on.
They were saluting,
so she could inspect the troops.
Yeah, that was before Hitler. Hitler could have got that from her. Mm-hmm. It was before Hitler.
And it was that kind of honesty and the fact that he didn't hold back, and he got emotional in some parts.
He did.
I'd never seen him be emotional about it.
He did.
The subject matter.
He did.
So that was huge for me.
Now we're gonna hit what AE was talking about, which was one of his favorites. Mm-hmm. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Police Chief Ralph Godby. Yes. That was an awesome show.
Those were awesome shows.
Because it was so awesome that y'all were like, no, this is not enough. Who was that? I think Georgia Aiken said that. Yeah, this is not enough. He has to come back. And that show was everything. That show was fire. So we definitely learned a lot about slave patrolling and the comparison up to the police departments today.
I mean, he really stepped us through that.
Yeah, he was not scared to say how he felt. You know, he was actually the police chief that came out and said, "Yeah, I believe in defunding the police."
Yeah.
He said that, and it's just, it was an awesome show.
You know, and it wasn't a show about griping, complaining, and talking about the possible. You know,
Yeah.
we were talking about possible ways forward.
Yeah.
Into the future.
Yeah, there was not a complaining show.
No,
There was
it was
no
just calling
complaints.
out facts.
Right.
So again, it's going to be called critical race theory, and every time that
Here we
accusation gets hurled at us, I'm going to giggle and I'm going to laugh, and then I'm going to correct them. But yeah, he was awesome. He just didn't hold back, and we really wanted to get the voice of the police. And I forget how many decades of he has well over 20 years worth of police service.
Yes.
So his viewpoint was actually invaluable.
Yes, it was very, very invaluable. So, the
reframing the narrative. That was also an equally powerful show. Well, all of the shows were powerful.
oh, I pissed some people off on that one.
Yeah, you did. So it was all going very smoothly, and then you ended up having you had a good conversation with Adrian, because you were both kind of talking about the same thing, but from different viewpoints, two sides of the same coin. And all you said was, yes, you know, we know that our enslaved ancestors suffered trauma, and that trauma has been passed down the generations to us. But as genealogists who are also the descendants of enslavers, and speaking to cousins white cousins that we relate to through these enslaving ancestors of ours,
They struggle too.
they struggle too, and they have trauma too.
And when I said
And that's all you said. And even to this day, on the YouTube version of the episode, you're still dealing with that comment.
oh my God, that was so funny to me. And I probably shouldn't even be laughing at it, because this is their feeling. But again, you have to realize that genealogy is a common sense based thing. And there's no way in the world, not comparing whose trauma was worse, because I made that comment too. I was not comparing whose trauma was worse than the others, but trauma is trauma, no matter how you look at it. And I'm gonna say it to you guys like I said it then. If you don't let your 5-year-old go to a horror film, you don't let them do that, because you know it's gonna traumatize them later. That's what you know. Those people allowed their children to watch and see men and women be lynched and then used for target practice, and taken pieces of their bodies home as a souvenir. What makes you think that is not traumatic? What makes you think that did not carry over into their DNA, just like the trauma that we have received carried into ours? That is their epigenetics. Just like the actual trauma of lynching, or as retired police chief Ralph Godby put it, the fact that you saw the police coming for you and now you're scared of them to this day because of it. That's what that is. You can't look at it any other way.
Because that's also a very good analogy. Because think about that trial where you had white people on the witness stand saying what they saw, and they were traumatized. The George Floyd,
you could tell that lady who was the EMT that was on site, and she was like, I'm a nurse. She said, I'm an EMT. I can help him. He's in distress. She was traumatized. Those people were traumatized. I know. See, everybody done got quiet now. I'm sorry.
The girl who shot the video, the black girl who shot the video, was traumatized.
Everybody was traumatized.
Everyone who saw that was traumatized.
Yeah.
So all you're saying, and I'm agreeing with you, is trauma does not see color. Our people have a hell of a lot of trauma over the centuries and generations, and we're not saying that acknowledging anyone else's trauma dismisses from ours.
Right.
It's just different.
Yes.
And I don't think I really tweaked on that until I met the first white cousins that I officially met was my Sheffy cousins. Mm-hmm. And within 5 to 10 minutes, I could see the trauma. It was awkward because we knew how we were related, we knew why we were related, but there's also trauma there.
Yeah.
As they're grappling with, oh my God, our ancestors not only just enslaved people, but they actually had children.
They had children with them.
They had children by them.
This really did happen. That's what it's saying. This really did happen. They really did do this. We heard about it, but...
Or it's even worse when they didn't.
Right.
They had...
It's just like the man that was in my car when I did when I was driving for Uber, and he never knew anything about breeding. That went way over his head. He was like, I'm sorry, we breed animals. We don't breed people. We don't do that. Yeah, you did. And now I got family spread all over the place because they took my great-great-grandmother's children and she don't know where they were.
And he was crying.
And he was crying real tears. And what did I have to do?
Comfort him.
He asked me, can I get a hug? It was so funny, but I didn't laugh at him. But I'm like, okay, I got you. But that's what it was. He couldn't deal with it. And he didn't understand it. So, you just...
Maybe part of the conversation that the country needs to have is acknowledging the trauma experienced by different groups within this country doesn't mean that addressing white trauma that's applicable to this diminishes our history or our story.
Right. Marcy Stair said people watching on TV, not actually there, were traumatized. And they were. But when watching the George Floyd thing, when I watched that, I had to turn it off when he started calling for his mama. That was enough for me. And I'm upset that I let it go that far. Because I was actually able to watch what he was going through. I was actually able to watch his eyes bulge because of the lack of air. And I was able to actually watch a lynching. And I'm mad at myself that I was able to watch that. And it not saying that it didn't bother me, but just the fact that I could do that. And we have desensitized ourselves something severe in this world to stuff like that. And
I just want to clarify who you mean by we.
Just in general, I mean.
But do you think that black Americans are in a way desensitized because we've been watching these videos for years upon years upon years?
I'm gonna take a stab and say yes, because we've almost gotten used to it. I think as black people sometimes we'll actually say, oh, well, he deserved it. Not George, but in other instances, they'll make the excuse for someone as to why they did it. And sometimes there's no excuse. It's just, I don't care what, like the young girl that was killed by the police officer because she called the police. And Ralph Godby, we talked about that too, and he actually agreed with me. She called the police and then went outside to try to do whatever it was that she was going to do. When in interim, that officer had every right to stop her. Now, he shot her 4 times or whatever the case may be, and she died from it because he thought she was going to do bodily harm. Understand, she was going to do bodily harm. She was going in. And it was sad that the adults around her was going in with her. And it was said, so instead of people saying, truth be told, this young lady should not, if you called that police, then you needed to stay in the house and let them handle it. She didn't do that. Well, they was talking about her grandmother.
I think the problem with that was she didn't have adult guidance. She didn't have
any adult guidance. And then the adults that were there didn't have adult guidance because they were out there with her. Yeah. So, and those are the things that, people are looking at it like, oh, well, he shouldn't have done that. He didn't know what she was going to do. Did y'all see that child lunge for them girls?
I'm going to still argue that the policeman, if he was going to shoot or tase, could have done it in a non-lethal way that would have still stopped her from doing what she was going to do.
I think it would have possibly stopped her. I don't think it would have. And that's the same thing that Godby said. He was like, that girl was about to do bodily harm, and the police can shoot at that point to stop bodily harm. And because of the way she was lunging with that knife, she could have definitely killed one of those people, and then she would have gone to jail for murder.
True.
So,
I think,
y'all, my daughter's calling me.
like,
I think she forgot. She just traveled, but I'm not going to answer.
It's like Ahmaud Arbery was really rough for me because he is another one who's descended from the Weeping Time people. So there was that whole part of his history that I knew about. But that should have never gotten to that extent. To watch these men in a pickup truck with rifles and all the rest of it, just really, really angered me.
Right.
Because that was another lynching. You know, they were determined that
Ahmaud Arbery, yeah.
That they were going to do what they were going to do.
Yeah.
He's jogging. He's minding his own business.
Yeah.
And
that was a classic. That was classic because then they hit it. Mm-hmm. Then they hit it, you know. So the reframing narrative definitely got people mad at me.
And I have to admit, I really loved that whole series that we did because we had different aspects of what I would call the whole coming to the table movement.
We did.
Where black and white descendants of either an enslaver or they don't even have to be biologically related. They just need to share a common enslaving family. Right. Can sit down and talk about that shared history.
And that's an honorable mention show because we did have a coming to the table. I mean, we have honorable mention shows throughout that time because coming to the table was on a season 4.
The meeting
of the Settles cousins. Yeah, that was on there. So we've had some really awesome shows this year, and hopefully next season we will follow through and give you the same type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to close on Loki Mulholland because we
Can I say I love him?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I love Loki, guys. I love him. I love his mama. I love them all. I think that they
because we did so much with the civil rights movement.
Yeah. But, for those that don't know, Loki Mulholland is a 4-time Emmy producer of shows like, he did one for Ruby Davis, which is the young girl who, what is she?
Oh, the school.
Ruby Bridges. For a school, she was the first young baby to go to elementary school, black baby to go to elementary school. He did stuff for the Pettus Bridge. He did a show about that. He did a show about white families, documentary, white families adopting black children and then actually getting that eye-opening stuff that we're sitting here talking about right now.
And consider, because his mother was...
And that's what I was going to end with. He also did a documentary about his mom. His mom was the infamous white woman. Why can't I think of her name?
It's gone out of my head too.
Joan,
that's it.
Joan Mulholland. She is a Delta with Delta Sigma Theta sorority. He is an Omega with Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Basically she was one of the white women that sat at the famous Woolworth lunch counter and just they were tortured in so many ways. Beat, spit on.
Imprisoned. She was even abused in prison.
She was abused in prison. I mean, just everything. And that show, God, I'm still trying to get his mama on this show, y'all. I'm trying.
Because again, we talk about white allies today.
Yes.
Well, she was a white ally.
She was a white ally
back in the day.
Let me tell y'all, she was such the white ally. She was the one. She actually just missed being hung what the show Mississippi Burning was about. They had just missed that. It almost happened to them. Literally. That was the story that was told. It almost happened to them. So when you get the opportunity, go to Amazon Prime. All of his documentaries are up there. Plus he has a podcast and everything. So you gotta catch those shows, guys.
And because I know we're out of time, but really quickly, the story that he told about his mother being a young girl, I can't remember, she was under the age of 10.
10.
So she either
On a
lost
dare.
the bet, it was a dare. She goes into the black part of town.
Yeah.
And it was like the streets cleared.
They cleared.
And listening to him
Tell that story.
relay that story.
And that's what made her be like, this should not be. At 10 years old, she felt like that. I'm going to need people to start standing up. Or as Rihanna put it, have your people pull up.
Yes.
Have them pull up. But we're at the end.
We are indeed.
So we're gone.
We are going to miss you guys.
Yes.
We really are.
We really are. We really are. And just know that if we do genealogical research for people on a paid basis, so you can definitely go to the genealogyadventures.net and go to services tab, and you can find us. And if we can help, we will help.
And as we said, this is the close of Series 4, which means if you missed some or you missed any of the first 3, they are all up on our Facebook page on the video tab, and they are also on YouTube on the Genealogy Adventures channel.
Yes. So definitely look them up, follow them, put messages up there. We'll respond. We'll still respond.
Yeah.
We will be back in September.
We will indeed.
And just look for who's going to be on our shows. So I'm not going to tell you.
So until the end of September at, again, 4 p.m. On a Sunday, I'm Brian.
And I'm Danya. You guys have a great, great rest of the summer.
Have a great summer.